What is up, everybody, on this Sunday? Glad to see you. Let me turn that music down. You probably can't even hear me right now. Let me turn the music down, and then we can get started. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. I know there's football going on right now, but it's bad football. So sit around and talk about good football, sort of, with me. I am Michael Borky, of course. Please like the video if you have not already. Also, comment. If you are listening to this after, I was told by somebody that would know that comments are like a driver of views and stuff. So comment as well if you're listening after the stream is over. I would appreciate that as well. But as long as you guys are here, my volume is low. How low? How low? Can you guys hear me okay? Am I good, or do I need to make some adjustments? I've changed nothing. I think it sounds better now. Okay, good. I think it's just the music being what it was. Anyway, all right. So, so comment as well if you're watching afterwards. We're here to talk about football. Ole Miss wins. They coast past Vanderbilt. That's what I'm going to call it, because there are some people that are like going to kind of read a lot into like every play and like break down the Vanderbilt game. And you can call it lazy if you want. I mean, I guess that would be a fair criticism. I don't think that is worth your time, quite frankly. I don't think that anybody that is an Ole Miss fan wants anybody to break down the Vanderbilt game. Frankly, it was a boring football game, as it was always going to be. It was a game where the biggest takeaway is health. They got out to a big lead, and it was 26-0. They were in complete and total dominating control, and they coasted because they played a more important game the week prior, and they've got a very, very important game coming up on Saturday in Georgia 2 weeks away. They got up big, and they coasted. I don't think it's worth your time, quite frankly, to break that game down. I think what needs to happen with Ole Miss now is move the conversation forward. Talk about A&M, talk about the rest of the season. Nobody got hurt. I mean, I guess there's questions about Dart's health, like if he's 100%, and, did the post-game podcast and talked about that a little bit, where, if he's not 100%, why the hell is he dunking a basketball on the sideline? But either way, nobody got hurt. They coasted, very clearly got up to a big lead and decided that was enough. I mean, you can even argue that the coaches were screwing around a little bit with their red zone packages with Pegues at quarterback and Spencer Sanders at wide receiver. But to me, that's all you can say about that game, really, is that they won. They jumped out of the gate early, jumped all over them, and coasted to the finish. All eyes should be ahead instead of backwards. If we're still talking about the Vanderbilt game, I mean, we have to do it on the radio show tomorrow, of course, because of course we do. It's the first time that audience will hear thoughts on that game. But I mean, if we're still talking about Vanderbilt after, the first few segments of tomorrow's show, I think we're doing it wrong. All eyes from Ole Miss need to be forward, breaking down that game and stuff. Frankly, I think it's a waste of your time because you shouldn't care. On the flip side, Mississippi State, so, number one, there's a report floating around that I don't buy. I know it's fun for fans around the SEC to kind of pick at it, but a guy who goes by Mike G on Twitter, he does have a blue check mark, but that doesn't mean anything anymore. His bio says Auburn football, basketball, and sports talk co-founder and show host of The War Report, which is a thing titled Auburn Sports from a Fan Perspective. So you should already take that for what it's worth. But anyway, the report says, per a source, Auburn's defense caught on to Mississippi State's calls early in Saturday's game. Any call that started with a certain letter was a run play, and they figured it out by the second quarter. Mississippi State kept on doing it. And people are kind of running with it and having fun with it and whatever. But if that is actually the case, then Auburn they knew what the plays were going to be, apparently, according to this guy, and performed worse after they knew that. Because Mississippi State's offense moved the football much better in the second half than they did the first. So if Auburn knew their signals or knew the plays and knew the calls, they then performed worse after they you kind of see what I'm getting at. So, I mean, State lost, and there's hard conversations that need to be had moving forward. It's all bad right now with Mississippi State, frankly. Recruiting's not going well. This team is going to lose a lot of players. Um, Portal has not been something that they have as a program projected to be something that they are willing to go heavy into. Maybe that changes out of desperation or whatever, but there's a lot of hard conversations that need to be had about Mississippi State football right now. But I do think that if you're going to believe, what is it, Mike G in that report, you then have to believe that Auburn got worse when they knew what Mississippi State's signals were. So that really just doesn't hold up under scrutiny at all. However, losing that game the way they did is just, it's another, it makes you wonder, frankly, how the administration feels about program direction and what kind of message a change would send. Now, there's still games left. You can beat Southern Miss and then beat Ole Miss, and then the fans would feel differently about you than if you lost to Ole Miss at the end of the year. I mean, they play Kentucky this weekend, who just lost to Tennessee, and although Devin Leary just had his best game, like it's not quote unquote over yet by any stretch, but nothing got better. I mean, I know they beat Arkansas, but now I think now we've learned that while winning games on the road in the SEC West is always a good thing, and you take them. We have now officially learned that was far more about Arkansas than it was Mississippi State, frankly. And the way they played, the way they got out of the gate Saturday was, it's hard. It's a very difficult product to consume right now with Mississippi State. Recruiting's not going particularly well. And those kind of conversations, I mean, especially if they lose to Kentucky this weekend. And look, if they beat Kentucky, then this can drag on for a few more weeks. But there is legitimate concern about program direction already. They're 8 games into year one. So they're fair questions to ask, frankly. You also have to wonder what kind of message it would send firing a first-year coach after you fired a second-year coach recently as well, and what kind of message that would send. I know it's a unique circumstance, but still, I mean, there's a lot of things to discuss right now about Mississippi State football, and none of which is good. At least with like Billy Napier at Florida, Florida fans have been disappointed with how it's gone so far. Now the team's looking better this year than they did at the beginning anyway, but they're recruiting well. There's something to point to. South Carolina's kind of a disaster right now, but I mean, look at their commitment list. There's something at least to say that, it's not the team on the field is not particularly good, but there is an influx of talent coming. That is not the same thing that you can say currently about State. So that loss really just put a magnifying glass on everything that is going on, and none of it is particularly good. So there's a lot to discuss there, and we'll chat for the next 30, 45 minutes or so and see what you guys have to say. So here we go. Not a fan of the phrase, the disrespect is unreal, but the disrespect is unreal when it comes to ranking Ole Miss. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. The Pac-12 is overinflated at the moment. The AP poll also doesn't matter anymore because the college football rankings, playoff rankings will come out on Tuesday. But, I mean, they're about to be a top 10 team. They just keep winning and everything will take care of itself. The AP poll having Oklahoma ahead of them, frankly, is stupid. It is. But that poll is utterly useless now. It's completely and totally useless. So don't worry about it. I think the coaches got it right. I think them being at number 10 at the moment is an appropriate ranking for whatever that's worth. Hopefully the playoff rankings correct this nonsense. Ole Miss is better than Oklahoma and Penn State. I definitely agree with the Penn State line for sure. I think if Ole Miss and Penn State played today, Ole Miss would win. I truly believe that. Penn State is really just anti-explosive on offense. They don't have great quarterback play. Frankly, weapons aren't what you're even used to seeing from Penn State. It's a good team, not a great team. I think that if they played on a neutral site right now, Ole Miss would win. I'm not as confident saying that about Oklahoma, but they should be ranked ahead of them at the moment, regardless of what I think about how it looks on the field or how it would play out on the field. I do think based on body of work, resume, whatever, then yes. I do think that Ole Miss has played a more difficult schedule to this point. They have more quality wins. So the Ole Miss defense is quickly becoming one of the better units in the league. Now 3 impressive performances in a row, and Vandy's only points were aided by a penalty on a third down sack. Yeah, and as Barrett Sallee tweeted something about that, and his mentions are filled with, well, they only played Arkansas and Vanderbilt, and yes, they does everybody else only play good teams, though? I mean, that's what's so stupid about criticism like that is it's a defense that ranks among the top in explosive plays and havoc and turnovers. They get tackles for loss, they get sacks, they turn the ball over, and they are among the best in the country in all of those categories. And that has been the case for weeks now. And has been the case since before they played Vanderbilt, for example. Yes, Pete Golding is doing a phenomenal job. And I do think they are limited personnel-wise in spots. But as I said on the podcast earlier today, what is impressive about Ole Miss's defense is it appears to be one that, frankly, makes very little mistakes. They appear to be in the right spot often. They don't screw up very often. They're explosive. They're lacking some athleticism in spots. But they don't blow coverages. They don't miss tackles much. They are usually in the right spot. That speaks to two things. It speaks to maturity, smart football players, and good coaching. It's both of those things. It's a credit both to the coaches and the players. Their portal strategy with who they added on defense, we talked about it this summer, and I brought it up on the radio show as well. It kind of was an underrated talking point going into the season. They didn't just take like the 1-year Texas A&M reject or whatever. They have a bunch of guys on that defense that have played a ton of football, multi-year guys at Miami of Ohio and Liberty, and a guy that was at Alabama for years, and a guy that was at James Madison for years. And that is what they added on defense. Guy was at Louisville for years and UCF for years. That's your difference, is they are a mature football team, a smart football team that is also very well coached. Both of those things are true. By Spencer Sanders picking Ole Miss over Auburn, how bad does this hurt his NFL career? Frankly, I don't think it changes much, to be honest. The NFL, not saying that you're doing this, Ole Miss fans, some Ole Miss fans going into the season really overinflated what kind of quarterback Spencer Sanders was. Good college quarterback, turned it over way too much, was really, really inconsistent. What wasn't a guy that you would think would be like a surefire, NFL player. I'm certain that he could end up on a roster. I'm certain about that. But in terms of like being a starter and playing and being a high level prospect, he doesn't have that. Never did at Oklahoma State. He played well there. It's just the NFL is a totally different animal. And, I don't think it was going to be a thing that was going to be a long-term answer anyway. But you're not a fire the coach guy, especially not in year one, and also not at the second worst job in the SEC. But Selman needs to start making phone calls and at least seeing what's out there. That's what I would be doing if I were him. Chase, frankly, is kind of gauging the market, because you don't want to pull the trigger on moving on from a guy in year one after you recently moved on from a guy after year two without really having something basically solid in place. You don't want to fire him and then get said no to a bunch of times, because this is kind of a weird year in coaching search land anyway. How many surefire, like slam dunk, oh, this is a coach you got to go get prospects are out there anyway. Is Kane Womack attractive at the moment for an SEC program, considering that his team has struggled a little bit this year compared to last year? I no disrespect intended. Lance Leopold is going to have, I think if Texas A&M is smart, that's who they go after and throw the entire bank at. So you might have to be competing with somebody like an A&M, or hell, possibly even a Michigan, to get a guy like that, and I wouldn't like State's odds in that fight. Um, and I don't think anybody could take that disrespectfully. It's just the truth. I mean, if you're a coach and you're given Texas A&M or Michigan's resources versus Mississippi State's, well, that's where you go. That's just reality. So aside from Leopold, who's out there? Uh, I mean, is Tom Herman somebody that would make that jump to State? Possibly. I suppose that he would want to get back into the SEC. Maybe that's the thing. Who is out there? The Oregon State coach would be interesting. I assume he's probably looking to get out, and he's really running a good program up there. You're not getting DeBoer out of Washington. I had a State fan ask me about that. That's not happening. So yeah, gauge the market, see what kind of reception you get before you do make a decision like that. Because without there's a chance that you could really damage the way people look at your job if you do this. There's a chance that that is the case. I think it's an oversimplification just to say, well, it's an SEC job. You'll get somebody. Like, is that a goal in a coaching search? Just get somebody? I mean, you just change for change's sake. I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer either. So it's a difficult situation that they're in right now. But it's very clear. Everybody's got eyes that right now, they are not coached well enough to win games in the SEC. And right now, recruiting's not going well enough to rectify that situation. So they're in a tough spot. I do not envy Zach Selman today at all. And I don't know how he's handled the baseball program can be a precedent for how you think he's going to handle the football program. Giving Lamonis another year is not the same thing as football. It's very different when it's a sport that loses money versus the sport that funds everything else. Late to the party. Glad you're here anyway. State is staring 5-7 in the face if Kentucky just shows up in Starkville. Yeah, bad timing too, because Leary did play his best game of the year yesterday, and now that's when he's going to Starkville is when he's good. He should at least ride some confidence, even though they lost the game, because he did play pretty well yesterday. With Arnett's built-in parachute and what's essentially a full roster flip next year, if you can get a guy you like, I don't see it being a big deal in this particular scenario to start the rebuild now. Well, no, financially, it's not a big deal at all. Financially, it's not a big deal. State can absolutely afford it. I mean, it's nothing. The contract is not a hindrance. It's, who you could replace him with. That is the hindrance. Is it really worth it if you can't get a guy you like? So gauge the market now. I mean, they all do that anyway. But yeah, I'd be working hard if I were Selman, literally right now, putting feelers out behind the scenes and just kind of seeing what the reception is to, hey, if we move on from him, what would your interest level be? That's what I would be doing this week if I were Zach Selman. Doesn't mean you make a change or anything. You could beat Kentucky and settle things down, but that's what I would be doing this week. You weren't impressed by A&M at all on Saturday. Don't know how much they score on the Ole Miss defense. They're really bad up front on the offensive line. I'm surprised Max Johnson survived that game. I don't know if he's 100% healthy anyway. But this is an A&M team that has a group of wide receivers that's really good. Really good. A lot of talent there. Whole lot of talent on the defensive line. And Ole Miss has had protection. I mean, Ole Miss had protection issues yesterday. So they haven't really kept defensive fronts off of Dart particularly well, or at least as good as you would hope that they would. But no, I think at times that they've been bad in protection. And so here comes this A&M team with a very talented defensive front. That's why, look, I know what their record is, and I know what people think about A&M. I know what I think about A&M, but I do know that they are talented. And the odds makers having that line, what it is telling you that, it's a tough matchup for Ole Miss. They're really good up front. They've got really fast, explosive wide receivers. Even though it's at 11 a.m., you're happy that game's at home, of course. Certainly a game that they should win if they play well, but we'll see if they can put 4 quarters of good football together. But yeah, they've got enough that should quote unquote worry Ole Miss fans. It's not going to be a cakewalk, I don't think. If it is a cakewalk, then that's a really impressive performance. What state fans on the Bird app don't want to hear, none of your favorite candidates are going to want to take the job without a Brinks truck. It's a top to bottom, rip down to studs rebuild. Yeah. No doubt. I mean, the half the roster is going to be gone. Quarterback's going to be gone. The what you're going to inherit in terms of a recruiting class is not something that you're excited about. Has Ole Miss started seeing a return on the investment into Kiffin, Golding, et cetera, contracts, or will that take multiple years of success? They're already seeing a return on that, 100%. I mean, the A&M game is going to be sold out, and so they will have had I know the Vanderbilt game didn't sell out because Vanderbilt brought like 175 people to the game. So like their sections were a little bit empty, but there were still over 58,000 people there. So you've had a sellout with Georgia Tech, LSU, Arkansas, basically one with Vanderbilt. You're going to get one on Saturday. I mean, the economic impact that this kind of team is already having, yes, it's absolutely paying off already financially. 26-0 lead, then vanilla after that. I agree. I agree. I mean, I think you could physically see that they kind of shut it down after they built that lead. The only negative, and I said this to the podcast audience earlier today, so forgive the repetition, but the only downside to what happened is that you didn't get to give a bunch of reps to like Aiden Williams, and Walker Howard didn't get to play because they kind of shut it down and played with their food for a while. The starters had to kind of, just because it was never in doubt, but it was close enough to where you couldn't just start really screwing around. That's the only downside to yesterday, because nobody got hurt. There we go, unmuted. At least to my knowledge, anyway, nobody got hurt, and so, that's all, Justin. That's all there's to take away from this game. Piggy scored on that Wildcat play. He was robbed for sure, no doubt. No doubt. People are completely delusional to think Leopold is a viable candidate. Kansas today is a better job. This is coming from a State fan, by the way. He's leaving that job to fill a Lanning, Harbaugh, et cetera, type replacement role if they leave. Yeah, if I'm Texas A&M, I'm throwing the bank at him too. And if I'm an SEC team, I want him to tell Texas A&M no. I think he's a Midwestern guy, isn't he? Let's see. I believe so. If I'm him, I am really, really lobbying behind the scenes for the Michigan job. If I were him, yeah, he played at Wisconsin Whitewater. He's from Jefferson, Wisconsin. His coaching career is Whitewater. He was a GA at Wisconsin, Nebraska, Omaha, back to Whitewater, Buffalo, and Kansas. Yeah, he's a Midwestern guy. So if I were him, Michigan is a job that I am very much lobbying for, and letting the people at Michigan know that, hey, you move on from that cheater, and I will bring my uber exciting offense to Ann Arbor, and I will win a bunch of football games. That's what I'm doing if I were him behind the scenes. But A&M should throw the Brinks truck at him. I mean, now you're also, Chase, you're going to possibly, and I don't think possibly, be doing this as well with Arkansas. It's not just A&M that's going to possibly be open, but there's Arkansas as well that you assume is going to be moving on from Sam Pittman as well. Maybe they don't, but it certainly feels like that is coming. And so, two teams in your division, which that's about to go away, but as of right now, it's still your division, also looking for coaches when you're firing a guy after 1 year. Not ideal. It's harsh to say, but the current trajectory with Arnett and State is staring irrelevancy in the face for this year and for 2024. Something has to be done, or they're in serious danger. Imagine what their defense is going to look like next year after they lose all of their seniors. Enjoy the content, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. If I were a State fan, Saturday is unacceptable and downright embarrassing. I mean, the broadcast said I mean, multiple times. Where has this Auburn offense been? I know they have to do that because they're calling the game, but guys, I can tell you where that Auburn offense has been. It's been playing better defenses than the one that they saw Saturday. Again, the second half, it got better for State in the second half. They played much closer and much better, and they moved the football a little bit. And but still, does Ole Miss have a big chance to upset the Georgia Bulldogs? Got to get by A&M first, of course. I don't think it's a 0% chance. I don't think it's a Dumb and Dumber 1 out of 100. No, more like 1 out of a million. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah. No, I don't think it's that. I mean, there is a realistic argument that would say they can win the game. But that, at least coming from me, other people might do it differently. But I will call that game a free shot where, yes, if you lose, like your playoff hopes are gone. But that was always kind of wishful thinking anyway. That Georgia game will be a free shot. You go, and especially with who you're playing next week. So it's not like you have to get up again. You have to get by A&M first, but Georgia would get my best shot, a free shot, and losing to Georgia should not by anybody be viewed as quote unquote bad. It's a free shot. If you lose, you still have 2 wins against teams that or 2 games against teams that you're better than on your schedule to win 10 and go back to an Access Bowl and have a wildly successful season in what was supposed to be a kind of a rebuilding year. And so you would carry such incredible momentum going into the 12-team playoff era, returning so much from this year's team to next year's team. This was always supposed to be a bridge year, and to win 10 games in a bridge year would be a remarkable accomplishment. So can they win? Sure. But if they don't, it's not bad. Like, it's a free shot. You give them what you got, and if you lose, you lose, and you just move on and you beat ULM and win the Egg Bowl and then go to an Access Bowl. That is how I don't want to tell fans how to feel. I don't think that's my job. I don't think that's what my platform is for, especially the radio show one, the much larger one, is to tell fans how to feel. I don't like doing that. You feel how you feel, and I just talk to you about it. But no, that Georgia game to me is you go in with the best feeling as a fan. A win, great, like awesome, party in the streets. Loss, whatever, still like everything's okay. That's the best place to be as a fan. So, do I think Pete Golding would take a Group of 5 head coaching job, or is he happy being the DC and hoping Lane eventually leaves? I don't think Pete Golding will have to take a G5 job. I've said before that I believe that he thinks that he will be, and this is anecdotal. Like I haven't spoken to Pete, but I do think that there's a belief that if/when Lane leaves, he would be on the very short list of candidates. I know that he has very much impressed a lot of people there with recruiting and how quickly the defense has turned around and stuff like that. I do think he would be on the very short list of candidates if Lane were to leave. And even if Lane doesn't leave for a long time, I don't think he will have to go to the G5 level to be given the opportunity to be a head coach. I think that opportunity, his next job will be a Power 5 head coach, I think. Unless he's just so desperate to be a head coach that he takes the first chance that he can get. But no, I do think that if he plays his cards correctly, his next job will be a Power 5 head coach. Where that is, we'll see. Frankly, if I were a betting person, I would bet on Ole Miss for whatever that's worth to any of you. But I do think that will be his next job. Any move State makes right now has a good reason to think it's a wrong move. It's possible. Do I think Kiffin kept Walker on the bench because of how late they took Dart out? Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, they didn't bury Vanderbilt like they should have. They didn't really run the offense like normal with Spencer. Yeah, they were done. I mean, they were simply done. They were done. They were vanilla. They didn't care as much. Walker Howard would have played in a perfect world, I think, but he didn't, and kind of a wasted opportunity. You would expect to see a lot of him with Louisiana Monroe. You agree with me? Move on to Texas A&M. Agreed. There is no quote right move for state. I think you make your phone calls, see if someone you like is interested. You can't fire a first year coach and take a flyer on the 8th on the list coordinator. I agree completely. It's got to be firing with intent. You know what I mean? And not just doing it because it's bad. You've got to do it because you know what you've got for sure. What's odd about these cupcake sandwich games is that Lane Kiffin doesn't run the other team off the field to get the backups in. It's more lazy and vanilla play where the game is never in doubt. I've thought about that and wondered, why that. I mean, they could have buried Vanderbilt and they didn't. And why? Why not? Why does that not happen with him? And part of me wonders if they simplify everything so much in games like that as to just kind of get through it and move on. And I think that's mostly what it is. I could be wrong, but yeah, he hasn't really just stuck it to these teams. Georgia Tech last year being a different animal, I guess, but especially with Vanderbilt, they've kind of just not ever pulled away from Vanderbilt, immediately just beating their ass, forgive my language, and just carrying that on through 4 quarters for whatever reason. I don't know, but that's the one downside to Saturday. Never forget this Vandy team put 20 on Georgia. They were only down 10 in the fourth against Georgia. So, yeah, they're lacking talent basically everywhere. That young quarterback, big physical athletic kid, really needs to work on things in the passing game. But looks like his mechanics are all over the place and inconsistent. But he's a big athletic kid for sure. State has a senior-laden roster, and also you're a threat to lose people like Parsons, Whittemore, et cetera, to the portal. If the trajectory holds, I think it'll go from ugly to catastrophic next year. You know what? Oh, I was about to say something dumb. Maybe it's not dumb. I can't help but wonder if it might be better. No, that's stupid. I was about to say it might be better to let catastrophe happen and then just blow everything up and really start over as opposed to whatever this is about to be. But that's kind of a dumb thing to say. You can't just punt a football season. That's really stupid. Ole Miss played with a malaise and still beat Vandy worse than anyone else this year. Something to think about. They did. That is very true. Especially, I mean, that was their worst offensive output of the year, for whatever that's worth. One problem for State is that the buy-in from the fans looks like it's turned to apathy 8 games in, and that's the problem. An apathetic fan base is not going to donate to a collective to help you get portal players to turn the roster around. It's just a cycle. It's like the team's not very good, so the fans aren't engaged, and if the fans aren't engaged, they won't give money to NIL, and if you don't have NIL money, you can't get the team better, and so the team being bad makes the fans not care, and then, it's just it's a circle, and I don't know how you break the circle. Actually, I do know how you break the circle, but anyway, thoughts on Trevor Jackson decommitting? Is that a nod to Jackson possibly returning next year? I don't think so. I have a feeling Ole Miss is no longer interested in his services. He lost his starting job on his high school team. I think that's more what it's about, frankly. If Ole Miss comes out Saturday playing smart with no penalties, shouldn't have a problem with Texas A&M, should beat them at home. I agree that they should, but I do think that it's going to be a challenge. They're just too talented, especially on the defensive front. That's where I'd be concerned is, again, yesterday, Ole Miss didn't protect particularly well yesterday, and you're seeing a much better defensive front 6 days from now. That's the area of concern for me this Saturday, looking at that Ole Miss game. Did Lance Leopold have a good audition yesterday? Wonder who's going to get him. If I were Arkansas, I'd be serious about it. My guess right now is Michigan. I think that's my guess right now. If I were, but here's the thing about Arkansas, Edward. Does Leopold need to go to Arkansas? Arkansas has been awful lately, guys. I mean, Arkansas hired Brett Bielema went to 3 Rose Bowls at Wisconsin, and he sucked at Arkansas. Then they hire Chad Morris, and that doesn't work. Then they hire Sam Pittman, and that doesn't work. So they go from Wisconsin's head coach, kind of like a Big Ten guy, meat and potatoes guy, and I'm not talking about his physical appearance, but they go from him, totally different style in Chad Morris. He didn't work. Different style in Chad Morris doesn't work. Different style in Pittman, again, kind of like Bielema, but still doesn't work. If you're Lance Leopold and you've got it, you got it rolling at Kansas, they're paying you a ton of money. Is Arkansas really the job that you're going to risk your career on? Because why do the other guys don't win there? That's what people are so, in my business, are so caught up in history when it comes to what they think about jobs, and just the landscape doesn't matter anymore. What is Arkansas right now? I mean, they're one good hire away from being good again, but so is everybody else in the SEC. Everybody else in the SEC and the Big Ten is just one hire away, pretty much. I mean, Vanderbilt's not, Northwestern's not, but you guys get my point. From being nationally competitive. I don't think Arkansas has inherent advantages over anybody in the SEC anymore, not named Vanderbilt. There is in Arkansas people, this would drive them crazy, but the numbers on the field, like the results, tell me that I'm right. Because Arkansas people would tell you that they're a better job than Missouri. Well, why is Missouri a better football team than yours? Why have they been a better program than yours? Why has Ole Miss been a better program than yours? Why has Mississippi State been a better program than yours? If you have all these advantages and it's such a better job, then why are they where they are? And why are you where you are? And why have you been where you've been? The college football playoff era this will be year 9, and they would have never played in an Access Bowl. And Ole Miss is about to play in their 4th, possibly. So why is that a better job? Somebody tell me that. I think the landscape has changed so much, and then people in my business haven't caught up to that yet. Because I think Arkansas is better than Kansas, but how much better? Things have changed, man, and they changed fast, and people haven't caught up yet. Mike Elko is also a big candidate. I would assume that he is lobbying behind the scenes for that A&M job. They could do a hell of a lot worse. This team is tough, man. With Michigan pulling Harbaugh's new future contract, do I think that that's the possible first step in his exit? I do not expect Jim Harbaugh back at Michigan next year. I don't know if you can get past this. And if you're him, I don't know if you're sticking around in college football. However, the NFL apparently is not going to be too keen on welcoming him with open arms without penalizing him either. So someone walked onto the job with a hired football coach 1 year off of a baseball title, hoping 21 was a fluke, and a new men's and women's basketball coach. Now he's staring down the barrels of a football program seemingly in free fall, a pending baseball coach hire at one of the few places it's a big deal. Yeah. I mean, when he took the job, our take was, well, he's in a pretty good spot. He can focus on NIL and like aesthetic changes as opposed to anything anything hard hitting. And now here he is. You still think Florida might come open at the end of 2024, especially with how Florida gets bullied in their losses, embarrassing versus Georgia, how they imploded. 5-7, 6-6, or something else. I think the result of the Egg Bowl is going to determine a lot about Arnett. We've seen it affect multiple bad coaches in the past. If he beats Ole Miss, he'll save his job. 100%. If he beats Southern Miss and beats Ole Miss and goes to a bowl game, he will keep his job. 100%. He will. 100%. Guaranteed. Feels like the first to 20 to 24 points will be the one who wins for A&M Ole Miss. You think a low-scoring game. I hear you. A&M's D-line will cause problems for Ole Miss. I agree. A&M's a game that you've had circled for Ole Miss all year. As much as we bag on Jimbo, he's loaded with talent at as much as any roster and seems to get them up for the big games. See his games versus Alabama. Probably rolling in with a little bit of confidence as well in this one. Lane has had his number for whatever that's worth lately. But, yeah, it's the talent is the thing that holds you on for sure. I mean, they're good at tight end. They're really explosive at wide receiver. I don't think that they protect well, though. That's one issue. They really don't protect well. And Ole Miss obviously gets after the quarterback pretty well. So that's something there. But which offensive line protects the quarterback better will be the key to this game. That's the key to most games, but especially in this one, considering what A&M has up front and how A&M has struggled protecting Johnson slash quarterback in general this year. Could I even imagine what Kiffin would have done with DK, AJ, and Dawson Knox? Oh, God. Oh, man. They would have been like LSU 2019 fighting for the best offense in the history of college football is what that would have been like. Crew, Luke, Moorhead, and Leach were all dependent one way or another on the Egg Bowl for either getting / keeping their job or being fired. Yeah. Early line on Ole Miss and A&M was what, 4.5, I believe, is what the line was. Let me see. I'll pull it up just to be sure for you. We can look at those quickly. By the way, no stream on Tuesday night. It is Halloween, and so we will be trick or treating on Tuesday night. So no stream Tuesday night. I will do something. I will record some kind of video on Tuesday night, but yeah, no live stream on Halloween because are you kidding me? So A&M Ole Miss is 4.5 in favor of Ole Miss. Alabama LSU is Alabama -4 at home. And for what it's worth, Georgia Missouri. Georgia is a 16-point favorite over Missouri. Almost a week until basketball season. The Pelicans are 2-0. What are you talking about? But yeah, no, exciting times around here for sure. Basketball is going to be fun here. You were really wanting Hudson to get that touchdown there on the overthrow by Jackson. Yeah, he missed a few. What wasn't his best yesterday or anywhere close, and he still completed, what was it, like 67% of his passes. So his bad games are still like not bad. He's elevated himself for sure, but definitely not good enough last night. But it was Vanderbilt, so it worked out. Does anyone know if Xavier Harris is likely to be ready this week and going forward? Yeah, interesting that he wasn't able to go. I guess we don't know exactly when the head injury occurred, right? That's what it is. He was in protocol. So if it happened at any point last week, timeline suggests that he should be ready for Saturday, but that's with knowing no details at all. What leads you to think Ole Miss can beat Georgia is that the coaching staff has experienced, especially Pete Golding. He has faced Georgia 4 times in his career at Alabama, which makes you think that he knows what to do. Georgia is a playoff game for Ole Miss. I agree with that, actually. And you still need help nationally, but 11-1 SEC team, very unlikely for them to get left out of the playoffs unless there is just kind of chaos, which that's been this season. I mean, you'll have the winner of Ohio State, Michigan. If Florida State runs the table in the ACC, if Texas runs the table in the Big 12, if Washington runs the table in the Pac-12, and there it is, So you need a little bit of chaos. Root for Florida State losses. Root for Ohio State and Michigan losses. Root for a Texas loss and an Oklahoma loss and a Washington loss and another Oregon loss. Root for that kind of stuff. If you really want to make it happen, that's how you make it happen. Depending on how things are with Dr. Keenum, everything else is different now. If he wants to come back on, I'd give the keys back to Mullen and don't look back. Could be worse. Would he be willing to recruit in this era, though? I mean, it's harder than ever to roster build and recruit and maintain a roster. Would he be willing to do what it takes to do that? You're not falling into the camp of Ole Miss beating Georgia until you actually see it. Such a tall order on the road. I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. That's not. I'm going to say it for the next 2 weeks because for some reason, people are just looking right past A&M and onto Georgia. You hope the team doesn't do that, but yeah, that's not realistic. Free shot. That's what I'll say. Hail, dear old state. Our version of Freebird is better than Auburn's. That's good to know. Access Bowl returning so much from next season and hopefully not dealing with Lane's got to get out of Mississippi. Well, Ole Miss has done everything it possibly can to change the narrative of what the job is. We'll see We'll see how real it is. Lane's done a lot of talking this offseason, and he said all the right things. We'll see if it's actually reality this time. You'd be putting all your eggs, if you were sitting in Selman's chair, in the Mullen basket. You've said for years the haters were morons. The quote, Lane is number one candidate talk is inevitable. Always is. I have not heard about what has happened with Aishim Young. I have no idea, frankly. Not a clue. Is Pete younger than 40? Yes. I think he's, 38? I believe he's 38. Yeah, he was very young when Nick Saban hired him. He's 39. He's 39. He'll be 40 in February, according to Wikipedia. So, thing is starting next year. Going 10-2 is all you need to be a playoff team. Absolutely, which keeps Ole Miss as an attractive place for Kiffin, no doubt. You cringed every time they showed Ole Miss skill players dunking a basketball on the sidelines. When Judkins tried to do the hurdle, I said out loud, get him out. Get him out. He's done. Just Judkins, his night's over. What the hell are you doing? Get him out. And they didn't, but that's what I thought at the time. I have no idea. I don't remember if they said anything about Matthew Perry on the broadcast. Ole Miss buried Vandy in the COVID season, but besides that, it's been a bunch of meh games under Kiffin. And they've won them all comfortably. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Ole Miss beat Vandy by a larger margin than anyone Vandy has played all season, even Georgia. Did Zachary Franklin get in on Saturday? I believe he did. Just didn't get the football. Leopold screams Michigan to you. Me too. With Kansas about to get a new stadium, Texas and Oklahoma leaving, you're poised to make great money and can be the big dog in the new Big 12. It's a good job at the moment. I think it's better than State and Arkansas. Can I see Ross canning Jimbo after another Ole Miss loss? I think that'll be done at the end of the season. I don't know if they'll do it any sooner, but Gus would be a perfect hire for Arkansas. Man, he should have gotten Oklahoma last weekend, shouldn't he have? He was close. He was close. Auburn people were insane about Gus, but he did kind of lose it there at the end. Arkansas, other than that small stretch in 2021 where they started hot, have not been nationally relevant since 2011 under Petrino. And we saw how that ended. I mean, think about how much has changed since 2011. How much has changed since then? The whole landscape of the sport has changed. I mean, everything about it has changed since then. Arkansas is not what it used to be. All the people in my business need to catch up to that. It'd be dumb for Leopold to leave for a pressure cooker job unless it's Michigan, Oregon, etc. That is undeniably bigger and better. I agree. I do. I think that this changing landscape in the sport is making jobs like Kansas a little bit more tenable to stay. And I like that. I like that is a thing that is happening now. Do I think Ole Miss will be better than last year on the diamond? They better be. Shoot. I mean, it's hard to get much worse. They did portal well. We'll see. I haven't really thought much about baseball yet. I know they had a scrimmage or whatever this weekend, but I can't bring myself to care about baseball in October. I know I probably should, but I can't. A&M still hasn't won a road game since before the 2021 Ole Miss loss. Over 2 years since they have last won a road game. You don't think Kiffin respects Jimbo's coaching? He sure doesn't. He sure does not. No, he doesn't respect really anything about Texas A&M except for the money. He respects the money. The thing Jackson needs to work on is the deep ball accuracy. He can get better there, but it's not as bad as people say it is. It is a low percentage throw. A 50-yard throw is a low percentage throw. They don't get completed all that often. Yes, he could be better there, but because he doesn't complete all of them doesn't mean he's bad there. Statistically, his completion percentage vertically and long throws is actually pretty solid. So it's just, people put a microscope on him because he's not Matt Corral. And Matt Corral wasn't perfect throwing the deep ball either. History will look back at Jackson Dart as better than what fans currently look at him, I think. Washington has looked pretty bad since beating Oregon. You don't think they make it through unscathed? I agree. I don't think they will either. They are playing with fire too much. Shout out to Will Levis today. He played really well for your Titans. Mayo Man might be the answer. Very impressive debut. They need to continue to give him shots, though, regardless of Tannehill's health. Just go for it. What do you have to lose? It's not like Tannehill's been good to the point where you have to give him his job back. So. Glenn says, you people are unbelievable talking about Lane leaving after the shit show with Auburn last year, and you talking about me speaking on it is just as nasty as some people talking about it, since it's probably trolls. If you think anything I've said here is nasty, Glenn, then I got to direct you somewhere else, man. I've got to direct you somewhere else. I mean, it's a reality that there are going to be people that are going to try to put Lane's name on a hot board when the A&M job comes over. I promise you, the Athletic or whoever is going to put his name on their hot board. Just get over it and deal with it. That's reality. I'm sorry that's nasty to you, but that's reality. His name, I mean, he's a great coach. People are going to want to hire him, and people love talking about him, and they love the clicks that his name generates. It is what it is. I don't think he's leaving Ole Miss after this year. I've said that many times. But I don't think he's going to stay at Ole Miss forever either. I don't know. I mean, just read a comment about how his name is going to get brought up in those jobs because it is. Because you've had 3 off seasons of Kiffin, and he's been on hot boards every single off season. That is the reality of him, and that is the reality of when you have a good coach that is winning games. I'm sorry, man. Some people don't understand how his name generates engagement and interaction on stuff. Yeah. So you don't understand, Glenn, because that's why people do it. And anyway, sorry, I'm spending too much time on this. If LSU beats Alabama and Ole Miss wins out, who wins the West with a 3-way tie in the conference? So I think it would be LSU. I think because it would be like down to Richard looked up the tiebreaker rules, and it's like down to like the 8th or 9th one. It's something about like, and they said on the broadcast last night that in that scenario it would be LSU. So I think it would come down to, because all the tiebreakers just still tied. And then it's like cross-division opponent's record or something like that, which would favor LSU because they don't have Vanderbilt on it, basically. So you have a lot of establishment college football fans and journalists. Ole Miss could go 9-3, 10-2, 11-1, 12 years in a row, and you'll still get people doing that. For sure. Ole Miss already hit Haydad's win total prediction. Is he going to pick them 7-5 next year again too? Text the show about that. I would like to kind of see how that goes. I mean, they're 1 win away from tying mine. They beat A&M this weekend, and they have to lose 3 straight for me to be right. So Kiffin's online presence has been huge for getting the Ole Miss brand in front of players and NIL supporters, a virtuous cycle. Exactly. I mean, that's the thing with a guy like him is you're going to win and you're going to get a lot of attention, and a lot of people are going to want winning and attention. I I think it's a compliment. Hell, when the A&M job comes open and Bruce Feldman puts Lane Kiffin on that list, just smile and be like, yeah, of course they want him, and they're not going to get him. I don't know. The Auburn thing soured that position some because that was a lot more realistic than just a hot board, obviously. I mean, in his own words in 4 different articles. But no, man. I mean, I don't think he's leaving Ole Miss this year. I think that this November is going to go very, very differently than last November. I think for a lot of reasons. But the job has changed. He has helped that, but Ole Miss has helped that. The financial investment is unlike anything they've ever done. The staff investment is unlike anything they've ever done. The fan base is very clearly bought in on NIL and doing what it takes from that perspective. And they're going to games and filling up the stadium. Ole Miss with a quote-unquote small stadium is like top 20 in the country in attendance or something like that. They're somewhere around number 20 in the country in fans per game, with having one of the smallest venues in the SEC. I mean, by percentage of butts in seats, I bet they're among the best in the country. So fans have stepped up. The school has stepped up, and the job, man, go to another Access Bowl, win 10 games in 2 of the last 3 regular seasons, and 28 games in 3 years, which would only be bested by Alabama and Georgia in the SEC in that time frame again. You're elevating the floor of your job. Your job is changing rather dramatically. So LSU fans, for some reason, think they still control their own destiny, which they obviously do not. If Ole Miss wins this weekend, anything less than 10-2 is a major disappointment. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would expect it. Hell, if they win this weekend, that's what. Here, sorry, I'm going to say this because I will end up being wrong, and you all hate me for it. But if they do win this weekend, I would guarantee that they're going 10-2. That would be what I would bet on. I mean, I would bet a mortgage payment on that. So, do I expect Jackson to return? I do. You think there's a better than 20% chance he transfers? There's also a chance that he transfers. That relationship has changed since this summer. So you could probably squeeze $70K in Vaught Hemingway. Ooh, that'd be tough. I think that would be student section dependent. Keith Carter needs a raise. He's done a hell of a job. And it's not just coaches hiring either. It's the way the department is run. And some of the risks that they're taking as a department. That's what you do that's what you have to do when your resources are more limited than that of A&M and LSU and stuff. Like you're not at the top in the SEC in resources. So what you do with yours is you have to be efficient and you have to take risks sometimes. And he's done both, man. I'm impressed by him thoroughly. The whole department is being run like it should have been for a long time. You think beating A&M and then regardless of the Georgia outcome, Kiffin will be looking at finishing the season strong in Starkville as a goal to wash away last year? 100%. And then he has said that he wants a huge reversal of last year. For sure. And it helps that they're not particularly good at the moment. But yeah, Access Bowl would be on the brain, and then you would go into an offseason where, quite frankly, here's what Ole Miss's offseason going to look like, because this is college football today, is renegotiating some contracts. You've got some guys on your roster this year that are going to be free agents at the end of the year, and you're going to want to keep them. I mean, there's a lot of guys with extra years that you want to keep on this team. And so you're going to have to get into you're going to have to re-recruit your own roster, because everybody has to do it, including the best teams in college football, have to re-recruit their own players and sign new deals. And that'll be really important, because if you look at not just the starters, but the two deep and basically every position, you're returning somebody. There is a real chance that this team is largely intact. going into next year. So what's lost in the Georgia game talk is Ole Miss can go 10-2 and win a bowl to get to that 11 for the first time ever. Not something to scoff at. Absolutely not. I don't think that they will lose like motivation or whatever if they lose the Georgia game, because there's still so much there for them to accomplish. So, do I think the Grove Collective gets a raise in NIL if they go 10-2 again? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Very, very much so. So, anyway, I got to run. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, like the video. No stream on Tuesday. It's Halloween. And so, no stream on Tuesday, but we'll be back Thursday. I'll post something this week, though. Multiple things this week to alleviate the missing Tuesday. But, I mean, come on. I've got a flight suit for the little guy. So. Here's one more. Clickbait talking points about Kiffin is detrimental to the players, and you only have to look at last year for the results. They got lost in the chatter, forgot about winning, and went 0-5. Well, they did go 0-5, but it wasn't. I mean, you can believe it or not, but I would encourage you to go read Lane's words in the LA Times, Outkick, and 2 ESPN articles about that last year, and just, what he said about that. Wasn't clickbait talking points. So but again, for whatever it's worth, I don't think it'll go down that way this time. I think his name's going to show up in hot boards because they always do. And I am willing to bet that it will not go the same way. We'll see. But anyway, I got to run. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on Thursday for sure live. But anyway, see you then.